Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back for another episode of Mums on a Mission with your host, Julie Hatch. And today we have a great show in store for you. I have a guest, Sasha Morozov. Is that right? Sasha Morozov,
Yes.
who is an amazing lady. I'm going to read you her bio, and you'll get an idea of who she is and what she's all about. She is a former executive who holds a master's in social work and is the founder of Sasha X Home. When Sasha isn't chasing her two sons, she now utilizes her clinical skills to coach women who are killing it at work, but feel that they are failing at home. Helps them to find more time, less clutter, and systems for a peaceful life. Couldn't we all use that? Sasha believes that working moms are exceptional humans who are skilled, devoted, and unstoppable. Sasha has spent almost 15 years working in the nonprofit field to help individuals and families create better futures. Sasha is an avid minimalist, productivity master, and is obsessed with organizing and designing people's lives at homes. Sasha has now developed a 4-step method that focuses on self, home, relationships, and systems to help moms hit start on the life that they've put on pause. Beautiful. Welcome, Sasha. Really nice to have you. That's a great bio.
Thanks, Julie. I'm excited to be here.
Yep, your energy comes through that bio, and your energy is there, which is great. Really fun. Okay, so you work, as we were just talking about a minute ago, primarily with working moms, but certainly it probably is applicable to all moms, but working moms. I've been both. I've been a stay-at-home mom, and I've been a part-time working mom. I've been a full-time working mom, and there's no ideal. Really. I think probably working part-time was the most ideal. But anyways, so I'd like to start with hearing about the system that you come up with your 4-step method to help focus on self, home, relationships, and systems to help them, what do you say?
Hit start
on the life that they've been hitting pause on, or something like that.
Yes, I'm telling you, I am on a mission. I'm on a mission. I really want all women, whether working or non-working moms, really to enjoy their life at home. And what I found through my journey, which is how I came up with the 4 steps, is really that you really got to look at yourself first. You cannot try to change anything outside of you until you figure your own stuff out. So that really means looking at, how did you grow up? What kind of life are you really living? And what kind of priorities do you really want and values? We all say, I prioritize my kids, or I want my kids to go to Harvard, whatever it may be. Taking a look and seeing what are really your priorities and your family's priorities, because they may not be matching up with what you're spending your time on. So once we kind of take a look at self, then to me, we could really take a look at the environment we're in. I want women to come home and not feel like home is a second shift at work. I want women to come home. I want them to relax, kick their feet up, have it be a sanctuary. Isn't it about time we enjoy the space? So that may mean getting rid of some clutter. That may mean rearranging. That may mean just creating more of a loving home in the way that you picture it for you and your family. One family may really value those family dinners, so the dining room is really going to be a place that they spend a lot of time on and a lot of effort of making it exactly how they want, while somebody else may value, I just need some time to recharge. There's a lot of introvert moms out there as well that come home and everybody's like yelling like mom, 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 but they just need some time to recharge. So maybe for that person, it's really creating like a space. It doesn't have to be a whole room, but even like a chair with a lamp and candles, books, different things that they can just know that that's their space and they can recharge them. So really, after taking a look at homes, to me, that's when we can actually look at relationships. And what I found is that there has usually been some sort of unbalance in the relationship, whether it's between the partners or whether it's with kids. We as women, I believe, are natural caretakers.
Yeah.
And with that, that means we're usually the ones that are wrapping presents, to making the teachers gifts, to doing so many things, planning the weekends, the holidays, whatever it may be. but do we need to? And that kind of goes back to the priorities. Is that such a priority? Keeping the house clean, like, there's just so much that we naturally do. And because we've naturally just always been doing it, we tend to think that, oh, well, it's not going to get done right. It's not going to this. So the relationships is talking about who's in your tribe? What can you let go of? And what can you say, okay, this is enough? Because I think all of us, especially today, we're always busy. We're busy, 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 busy. And I'm trying to say you don't need to be busy. Busy doesn't mean productive.
Yeah.
Busy's just busy. No one's interested in being busy anymore. So let's focus on relationship who can take some of that busyness off, whether you outsource it or have a partner or whoever, kids help around the house more. And then, only then, to me, once you laid that foundation of self, home, and relationships, you can start working on habits. Because by that time, you've already laid the foundation. You've already figured out what you want to do. So it's so much easier for a habit and system to stick because you know your why. You know why you're doing it. And by that time, you've already implemented some of the things and you've already started without actually realizing that this is a habit you want to keep. So when you package it all together, to me, that's a way to really just move women through a process, kind of get out of this fog that really on the other side, they can stand up tall and say, hey, I know who I am. I know what I love, and things are going in the right direction.
Yeah. And I think that priorities, that certainly is number one, because it's so easy to get caught up in meeting everybody else's needs and prioritizing everybody else. And it takes time and focus on yourself to really think about what your priorities are. And that makes sense to be the absolute first starting point, because nothing else is important until you know what is important, or not everything can't be the same importance. So that sounds great. Good system to start with, priorities, and then work from there.
Yes. And with the priorities, it could be as simple as, for some people, they're like, my child needs to have the perfect science project, and they'll work hours on it. For somebody else, they're like, I'm just happy my kid got homework done. Yeah. There's just so many ways, but we look at that amazing science project and think, oh my gosh, why didn't I do that? Why didn't But that's okay. You're not going to be able to do everything. Yeah. So what is it that matters to you, so you can truly focus your time there and make that something beautiful? Yeah, that's so important. And like you say, that's okay. If it doesn't happen, that's okay. Let it go, because you can't be all things to all people, which I think we're learning as working mothers. Yes. Oh boy. I remember coming home there was one time where I was just at 5 o'clock. No, it was actually 7 o'clock witching hour. I got home from a really long intensive care shift, and I was just, the dog was barking and I was stubbing my toes on Legos, and the place was a mess, and the kids were hungry and running around, and I just burst into tears. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And so that was sort of a breaking point. Would have been nice to have avoided that breaking point and prioritized beforehand, but I think a lot of us reach that point anyways. Yes, and we reach it because we just keep going. Yeah. We don't take the time, to me anyway, we don't take the time to just stop and say, whoa, how did I get here? Like right now, we're like, where did the year go? Where did, especially with COVID, everything, what's interesting is with COVID, we actually got some time to pause. So I wouldn't be shocked if a lot of people kind of started to rearrange their life because they actually had a minute. They were forced to, okay? But they had a minute to really think about what their priorities are, and not just what are their priorities and what do they want to do in 5 years. I'm saying, what small step can you do today? To me, it's all about those small steps. We just need to start going. We can't just put things off and wait and wait and wait. We're going to be so much older. Our kids are going to go to college. And again, if someone's listening, your kids are in college, that's okay too. You now have even more time to love your life. So you help moms sort of figure this all out. Yep. Yes. And it's such a passion project. I'm telling you, for me, what's interesting is that I've been lucky enough to work in a career I love. I love the nonprofit space. It's like just naturally where I'm a giver. I'm like, oh my gosh, like save the world, But at the same time, it got to a point of where I was coming home and I was like, My relationship with my kids wasn't where I wanted it to be. I've always had a strong foundation with my partner, but I didn't feel like we were just not even on the same page, just connected, just communicating, because we're both busy.
Yeah.
We're both climbing the ladder. We're both working long hours. And then we have a nanny to pick them up from school and take them to an activity, and they organizing their schedule. It was just like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This is, if you think of who I actually am, that is so not me.
Yeah.
I am not my kids need to be in every schedule, like every activity and this and that. I am much more like, I am good to hang out at the beach and that is it.
Nice. All right, let me ask you about, you say, I know there is a very popular phrase that most working mothers use, the work-life balance. And I think you say that you don't agree or you don't like that term. And can you tell me why?
Yes. Oh my gosh. This is one of my like preaching moment, which is that for me, when you talk about work-life balance, to me, that really means you're trying to juggle everything all at once. And it all needs to quote unquote look perfect. And it all quote unquote needs to be equal, right? That you can only spend 5 hours at the office or 5 hours with the kids and da 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 da. And that's not realistic. That is not how we live our lives. And nor do I feel like we need to. Life is not black and white. It's very much in the gray. So to me, what I like, the phrase I like to use instead is that life is like a pendulum, which is basically saying that, sometimes your work's going to need you. There might be a deadline. You might need to work late, whatever the situation is. So sometimes it swings this way and you need to be there for work because that is a responsibility, but you don't need to feel guilty about it because that's where your attention just needs to be. And guess what? Sometimes your kid's going to get sick. Sometimes you get sick. Sometimes things happen. Life happens. And you need to spend some more time at home. And that's okay. It's going to swing. So to me, rather than trying to juggle everything, let's look at it as a swinging pendulum. So that way, we're actually letting our shoulders down a little bit. And we recognize that, I'm spending some time here. I'm conscious of it. That means then this weekend or whenever else, I'm going to try to spend a little more time here to make sure that it evens out. Yeah. And to me, that's a much more healthier way to look at it than just trying to say, okay, I have my work and I have my life and they're separate and I'm dividing this, and this.
Yeah, that makes so much sense because it's next to impossible, I think, to have a balance. Really, very difficult. That's a much healthier way of looking at it as a pendulum, and you can put more of your attention on whichever end of the cycle your pendulum is swinging on, knowing that the other end will get your attention too when the time is right. Cool way to look at it. I like that.
Yes. And what I also really like to talk about in that kind of phrase scenario as well is that I feel like, especially I see this with stay-at-home moms, is that they feel like, I don't know, like, I think I want to go back to work. I'm not sure. Or maybe in a few years, or I see working moms being like, maybe I should be a stay-at-home mom, right? Like we're kind of in this, I don't know. Oh, it's okay. If you think about the pendulum, then right now, this is where you're at. This is what you're prioritizing. That's okay. And guess what? It might change. And that's okay. But that's okay. And when that time comes, that is when things are going to be able to go back.
Right. Oh, yeah. So back with the pendulum thing, the other thing that's good with that, when you were talking about moms, stay-at-home moms deciding whether they want to go back to work, I remember thinking that, I'm going to get left behind if I don't hurry up and get back to work. And that, part of the definition of mindfulness and being present is not thinking about the future and not worrying about the future. For one thing, a lot of times you can't do anything about it, but to be more in the present moment. And life is so much easier and fuller when you're in the present moment. And when you're wondering if you should go, when you're going to go back to work, and that I remember that sat heavily on me. But then you're thinking about the future and you're not there with your kids enjoying your time, not at work or whatever, being at home. So yeah, that makes a lot of good sense.
Yeah, that's why if we say this is just what you're prioritizing right now, and it might look different, it might not, and that's okay because that is what life is. You have so many different choices. Yeah, and this is what's important to you right now, and let's recognize that. Let's own that. Right. There's nothing wrong with that. That's why I feel like when I speak to some moms, they're like, but I should. I'm like, enough with the shoulds. My goodness. We all should be doing a million other things, but so what? Let's stop. Let's stop having that be our draining us.
Yeah, those shoulds and should nots are not, don't do anybody any favors. So this sort of leads me into you use the word guilt. Certainly, I think that a lot of working moms feel guilty. And even feeling guilty that you really like being at work. I used to love go to work on Monday mornings after having a hectic weekend of kids. And so it's easy to feel guilty. But also at work, if I was at work too much, then I felt guilty that I wasn't at home. If I was at home too much, I felt guilty that I wasn't at work. What can moms do about that guilt that comes with a job, it feels like?
Well, just really the biggest thing is if you're not so busy and so stretched, you're not going to feel as guilty in my opinion. Why? Because you know that there's going to be some room, that buffer, because not everything is planned out to the hour. So if you miss one thing, then oh my gosh, then this is going to be late, then this is going to be late, and all of that. That's what I'm saying with, you got to give yourself some space.
Mm-hmm.
You got to give yourself some ability to breathe, because when you start to actually breathe, you start to realize like, hey, wait a minute, I'm actually doing so much.
Mm-hmm.
And when you recognize and start focusing on the positive of how much you already are doing, it's so much easier to let go of the negativity, let go of the overwhelm, let go of the guilt, because then you're in a much healthier space.
Yeah. Yep. I also think that moms need to play more. They need to lighten up and play more. We all do, but especially moms, especially working moms, because it's easy to get bogged way down in all of the shoulds and the guilt, and we really just need to let a lot of it go and lighten up and have more fun. Have more fun. But I'm done with raising kids. My kids are gone, so it's easy for me to say. But I still believe that anyways.
You know, I love that you said that, because honestly, when sometimes I'm just exhausted from the kids, or one of my kids is like, just like, ah, or like, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so much. The best thing has been just like, you know what do you want to do?
Yeah.
You want to go for ice cream? Amazing. let's just have fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know what? I'm exhausted. Let's just have like eggs for dinner. It doesn't matter. Like, life does not have to be this like planned out, perfect, everything works out, everything is great. It's just, things are going to fall apart and you're going to be frustrated. But if you can be conscious of when it's happening, you're so much more there to be able to make changes. So next time, it's like, okay, you know what? This time I yelled for 10 minutes. Maybe next time I can yell for 5 instead. There's just little things, instead of just saying, I'm never going to yell again. Like, oh my gosh, I was that girl, whatever.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, okay, try to yell for 5 instead. Let's be realistic of where you're at. And when you get to 5, let's do 2. And when you get to 2, let's go to 0. Then, only then can we get to that point.
Yeah. Good point. Very good point. And again, it's being aware, being conscious of what's going on and how you're reacting or responding, or we want to respond rather than react if possible. But yeah, it's a work in progress, right?
Yep. And that's why being proactive, that's why really the steps is really making you think about the proactive part, really having those conversations with your partner or with your kids about, hey, I'm recognizing that I've taken on too much. And since I've taken on too much, this is where I need you to come with me and help me and divide things up, because then we're preventing those arguments. Even if I'm telling you, even if they're small arguments about taking out the garbage or whatever it may be, if you are having the same argument with your kids, with your partner, whoever is in your home unit, over and over, you got to pause and you got to start trying to think about it proactively and having those conversations.
Yeah. Do you have any advice of for moms, how to get their kids? Partners is another story. How to get their kids more involved with helping around the house?
Yes. So listen, with kids, every kid is different. So I just want to put that out there. And, some are naturally wanting to help, right? I think obviously the younger you start, the easier it is. And also if they see it as part of a family value. So if really the mom is the only one doing everything, it's a lot harder to all of a sudden say, okay, but now you do this. And they're like, but dad doesn't, or but blah, blah, blah doesn't, or anything. It's just, trying to have a conversation with kids to understand how everybody fits into the family unit. How does everybody contribute? Because everyone does contribute, whether it's positive or negative, everybody does contribute. So having them really be able to buy in, and also please, more than anything, let them do it their way. Their way may not be the way that you want it to be, but if it's done, just congratulate that it's done. And then next week or a few times later, say, hey, maybe you can try this and see if they take it. But if they don't, that's okay too. So honestly, instead of thinking, if you're a type of person that needs everything to be folded perfectly, and you ask them to fold their laundry and they just throw it in, and you're gonna, that's gonna like drive you crazy, don't pick that, please. Don't pick that as something. Ask them. They know. But at the same time, limit the choices. I think one of the biggest things is decision fatigue. We make so many decisions, and kids feel it the same way. So limit the choice. Give them 5 options. Hey, out of this, which one do you want to try? You can switch it next week. You can keep the same one. But let's get into a habit of where we're all working together, because we're naturally contributing. And I want us to be able to contribute in more, equitable ways.
Yep. Great. Very good. And I think that when you say, I think that does go for partners in terms of when you don't expect it to be done your way, let them do it their way. I figured that out eventually.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Ain't that the truth? But with partners also, I think it's really those conversations. What I have found is that partners want to help. They do. They just don't either recognize, they're just blinded by it because we've just been doing it. They're like, oh, you must like it because you've been doing it, or you've never complained about it. And we're like, we've never complained about it because we just have to do it, know? So I think it's just really bringing in our partner into our world, the things we love. And that's what I always say. We know what we're good at, and we know what we don't like, okay? Everybody knows, like for me, I can say, I don't mind cleaning, but cooking, that's not my jam. Food shopping, not my jam, but that's okay. Other people enjoy that. They're like, that's a time away from the kids or whatever it is. So for me, when I tell my husband, he's like, oh, I don't mind food shopping. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. But again, I have to be prepared that he does it at 10 o'clock at night, because that's when he has time. And I'm like, if I'm not in bed by 9, I'm cranky. I can't even imagine being at the store at that hour either. Everybody's different. But if I let him do it his way, it still gets done.
Yeah, exactly. And it all starts with a conversation. Like you say, you don't even know what the other person likes or doesn't like until you have a conversation. So, and that's probably good to have a conversation, not when you're in the middle of fighting about something, but separately, different time, different place.
Yes, and make it general. If you, unless you really are like, oh my gosh, this one thing, I just can't anymore, I'm at my boiling point with it, great. But start having a general conversation, so that way you guys can really just be open-minded, and that way you can see where things go as well.
Right. Now, how about the messy house? When I was just talking about when I got home at the end of a long day and stepping on Legos and things and I'm not persnickety. I don't have to have everything all lined up at all. I can let things go to a certain extent. But when there's chaos in the house, I feel chaotic and I feel out of control because the house is out of control. What do we do?
So number one, you're not the only one. You're not the only one. Everybody in that household is going to feel it, whether they recognize they feel it or not, but there is such a difference. So look, one of the things that I'm really, really not proud, but I'm active and really excited about is minimalism. The more stuff we have, the more things we have to do with it. So if we have 20 million of something, that's 20 million that we have to clean up. When we simplify, we declutter, and I don't mean just our stuff, just declutter. There's so many, when you start just going in that direction of thinking like, what do we really love? What do we really use? What have our kids just outgrown?
Yeah.
And even if they haven't outgrown, when it comes to like toys, I know toys is a big one, right? Because they end up everywhere. Legos end up everywhere. And you're like, I've literally had a Lego in my pool. And I'm like, well, how did a Lego get in the pool? They don't even come outside. Like they don't even, inside. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm used to find it. But in the pool, I'm like, they don't even come outside. I don't get it, but whatever. So with the toys, think about rotating toys as well. That's really one of the biggest things I like to say. That way you limit how much stuff you have to clean up or they have to clean up. And it kind of brings in the new excitement, because when you rotate toys, you have them inside for like a month, then you bring a new batch and you just switch. It's like there's so much more interested.
Yeah.
Like, why do you think the kids like fight over the one toy, right? They're like, you have so many toys. Why are you both fighting over the one toy? It's because they both got the idea. So when you rotate it, then you're almost like bringing in new stuff. So obviously declutter as much as you can and start slow. You don't need to all of a sudden get rid of everything, but just start with like one thing a day for 30 days. You can find one thing a day in your house for 30 days. I guarantee it. And at the end, you're going to get rid of so much stuff.
That's a good mission. That's a good goal. To one thing every day for 30 days. Yeah.
And it's simple. It's simple. And if you want to keep going after, keep going.
Yeah.
But you don't start with just, I'm going to just declutter everything.
Yeah.
Because again, that's kind of what I say, is that we have these like fantasies of like, I'm going to just but we don't actually complete them because we get overwhelmed. Because that's too many decisions to even think about how to get there. And I'm saying, how do we break it up? How do we make it simple? If you want to declutter, if you have like one space, then just focus one thing a day from that one space, if it's really a lot. And that's okay. Just start going.
Yeah. You're obviously big into, and understandably, I would say rightly so, into cutting things down to little pieces and just working little, rather than, it's very overwhelming to look at a whole picture of everything you're talking about. So you're big into cutting things down to workable chunks.
Yes, because it's so sad to me. Sometimes I hear stories and they're like, this is just what I'm used to now. Like, I've just given up. I don't want moms to give up. That is not what life is all about. You shouldn't have to give up in any area of your life. I want women to be happy. But the only way you're going to get to your end result is by starting with something. And a lot of times we don't know how it's going to end, but we know that, hey, I need less of this, or I want my life to just feel happier. We may not know exactly how to be happier, but we start with, hey, one of the things that's really painful for me right now is my relationship with my kid, or my relationship with my mother-in-law, or my house is not a place that I enjoy. Like, we can naturally come up with ways and get creative. It doesn't have to be exactly what you saw on the internet about how to do something. You'll get there. As long as it's your way, you'll get there. If you try to do it somebody else's way, then guess what? Sometimes you may succeed 100%, but it's going to last so much longer when it's what you are actually putting in and the way you are actually doing it.
Yeah. I'd love to hear how you work with parents, with moms. I know that there's some people that they're in business for organizing homes. Do you do, maybe not physically, but really talk specifically about how to organize every little part of somebody's home? Maybe you do it physically in person. I don't know.
So it depends, because it depends on the level of work, right? And again, this is where I say what works best for somebody, because you can hire an organizer, but guess what that organizer is going to do? They're just going to organize your stuff. So first, which is great, but you're still going to have 20 black shirts instead of the 2 that you wear. Somebody can come in and put all your black shirts together, all your white shirts together. What I kind of try to say is, okay, let's figure out what is something is an easy thing for you to get rid of? What is something that you're really stuck on, or really like, okay, I've got a lot of shoes? That's where, once we pin it down, that I'm happy to come in and really make sure that they're able to get through that. And then after, if they're like, you know what, I want a brand new closet, I'm like, amen, girlfriend. Find out who can design you a beautiful closet. And then if you want to hire an organizer because you have a mansion that, you know, God bless, go for it. But it's really coming down to first, like, what is hard for you? Because that's where we need to start. Once we start with what's hard, everything else gets a little bit easier. So it just depends on the person. If somebody's like, I don't mind going through my stuff, somebody else might be like, here are the keys, I want somebody to just do it. Then I'd work with them to make sure they find a good person and really make sure that that person understands what the outcome should be. So they don't just organize everything, that they're putting some things aside and saying, hey, we need to go through this. So it depends on the person. But for me, it's really just long-term strategies because organizers are amazing. Like I love me some good pictures of a closet, of a kitchen, of a pantry. But at the same time, I want it to last. And the way it is to last is for you to like embrace it. It's for you to really be able to take it on.
And minimalism. I'm big into minimalism, and our culture is just so full of stuff. There's just so much stuff in everybody's room, houses, and minimalism is just so much easier. A while ago, I moved on to Virgin Islands, an island, so I sold everything. I got rid of everything. So I was living in a tiny, tiny little shack in the Caribbean, so it was fine. But and you don't need a whole lot of clothes down there. But it was a very minimalist way of living, and it's so freeing. It's just so liberating to not have all this stuff to even think about or worry about. And then I come back and my house is full of stuff again. But anyways, I know that experience of being really minimal, and that's definitely the way to go. Definitely.
It is, but and again, I recognize that it's hard for people. And that's why I say it doesn't mean that you just get rid of everything. And think about what works for you. So a couple of tips on that. So one is that instead of just thinking, okay, if I don't love it, I need to donate it. There's different ways to look at it, okay? Because if it's something that you don't just want to donate, it's in good condition, think about it's something maybe you can resell. Because I know I've come across some women, clients, of where they're like, you know, I work hard for my money. I've earned it. I just now have a lot of it and I don't need all of it, but I want something in return. And I'm saying, okay, well, let's sell it. You don't have to sell it yourself even. You can pay somebody, then they keep a little portion, they sell it. Another one is regifting. And that doesn't mean you cover up that it's a brand, that it pretend like it's a brand new thing. But think about it. Maybe you have somebody that loves, I don't know, scarves, sweaters, hats. That you have a friend and you're like, and you're downsizing your collection of it. That would be a great gift for that person. This isn't, you don't have to pretend this is brand new. You say like, hey, this is mine, but I thought of you. That's so meaningful. That's so meaningful to be able to give. So donate, sell, give. There's different ways. And obviously, you know, passing it on in whatever capacity that looks like for you as well is a beautiful thing. So it's really thinking about what works for you. What are you comfortable with? What do you enjoy? What will light your heart up? If you spent like, you know, if it's your wedding dress, right? Like, let's take something like totally once in a lifetime. Like for me, I had a friend who was like, I'm getting married. I was like, oh my God, you're like, oh, like totally my size. Like, do you want my wedding dress? Like, did you buy a dress yet? She's like, oh my God, really? I was like, yes. But that's for me. I much rather that than something else because I don't need it again. Hopefully, knock on wood, you know.
That's excellent. I love that. Gifting is it makes you feel good. It's a win-win situation. Absolutely. You feel good and the person receiving usually feels good, especially if it's a good friend and it's meaningful. There's one other thing that I want to ask you about, that working moms who come home at the end of the day, busy day, and how are there ways to transition into being ready for the evening so that you don't, like you say, so that you're not working overtime or a second job by going home, but getting ready to bring on the evening or whatever is going to be happening at home in a more positive way, maybe? I don't know.
Yes. So in part of our just being so busy, we just run from one task to another. And it could be the opposite, right? It'd be getting out of the house to work. It could work in whatever, either direction. But the goal to me is really being able to take that time to transition. We do not, I really believe, even when we're working, we do not take enough time between meetings to just like comprehend everything that happened. Write things down, because guess what? I really believe we keep way too much in our heads. Like my notes on my phone, oh my God, I have like a million, because I don't want to just keep it in my head or think like, oh, okay, I need to remember this. Calendar things out, people. If it's something like, oh, I got to pick up the dry cleaning, just put it on your calendar. Don't like expect yourself to just like remember, or you have you're going to somebody's house and you're going to pick up a dessert. Like, just calendar it out. That way you don't have to think more than you need to for it. So just get it out, get it out, get it out, get it out. Take the time. Be able to be like present, exactly how you were talking before. We can't be present if we're thinking about everything else. We can't be present if we're not there. So how do we get ourselves there? We get ourselves there by taking the time and figuring out what works for you. For somebody, might be listening to a podcast that's just super funny and they're just like, oh, I laughed this. For somebody else, it might be just listening to music, because that's what lights them up and they're like just singing along and then like walking the door. But at the same time, have to think about the realistic experience you're going to have when you walk through those doors. Because if we're walking in being like, tonight's going to be amazing, everyone's just going to be like perfect, and every day you come home and your kids fight, or every day you come home, like, let's be realistic, okay? And let's start with being realistic, and let's work on positive ways that we can make it easier and easier.
Yeah.
So when you come home, and guess what? It's okay to take that time. Because if you know that every, Wednesday or whatever is really tough at work because, I don't know, you have a meeting you hate, or, whatever it is, then can you take just a half hour more on Wednesday to stop by and get yourself like a coffee or a hot chocolate, just something that's like a little bit for you, like it's okay. I'm not saying you do that every single night, but sometimes we just need to call up pizza and get it delivered instead of trying to think about what's going to be on the menu for dinner.
Yeah, I love all that. And going back to what you were talking about writing down, I'm one, when I start to get really busy and I've got a lot of stuff going on, I now come into my office, and if I think of something, especially at night, I'll go in and write it down, and then it's gone. Then I don't think about it anymore until I come in into the next morning on my desk and look to see what needs to be done. That's a really good, it's not an exercise, it's a good practice to do. It's amazing just writing it or putting it somewhere, then it helps to leave the head until you need to pay attention to it the next day or whenever.
Yes.
Those are great ideas. I love those.
Thank you.
All right. So what is the number one thing that you would recommend to a working mom right now?
Oh, I mean, there's many. Number one, honestly, more than anything, I just want to say kudos to you, because you're already doing a lot. Okay. So what I would recommend, instead of just writing down of like, okay, priorities and values and all of that good stuff and like getting into it, just write down things that you're proud of, because I don't think we give each other or ourselves enough credit. For me, it's like, I got my kids to school on time. Check. I'm writing that down. I brushed my teeth to work. Amazing. It could be little things, but if we start to just focus on the positive, you'll already see how much you're doing. And once you see that, then let's jump into making the values list. Let's jump into where do you want to start? Let's jump into kind of filling in those gaps. But it's just filling in the gaps. There's everything else that you're already doing.
Yeah. We all need to do a lot more of this to our little pat on the back for ourselves and to each other. Yeah, that's good. And I love your positivity. That's you got a lot of positive energy. You got a lot of positivity in what you teach and talk about. You can't go wrong with that. You can't go wrong with your positivity and your energy. So we're going to start wrapping up, Sasha.
I so appreciate it, because that's honestly.
Go ahead.
I so appreciate that, because that's one of the things I feel like we're missing, is just a lightness in the world, positivity, just a little more of just like, hey, how are you, when you're walking down the street, or just casual conversations, just putting yourself out there.
Yeah. Yep. Beautiful. So Sasha can be found. Her website is sashaxhome.com. And Sasha, tell also, where else can people find you? Do you have a Facebook or anything in particular that you can tell them where to find you?
Yes, absolutely. So if you are a working mom, head on over to Sasha X Home and grab your freebie of 5 steps to coming home happy after work, so you could feel today a little bit lighter and a little bit brighter. And if you want to hang out with me, by all means, I love me some Facebook group, which is moms taking their life to the next level at home. I go live, I share tips, and just if you have any questions, that's where I really hang out.
That's awesome. Wow. That's a great invitation. So Moms Creating a Next Level Life at Home. That's on Facebook, right? It's a Facebook group?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's sashaxhome.com. Wonderful.
Yep.
Sasha, this has been great. Is there anything else that you want to add before we completely wrap this up?
No, just honestly what I said before, just keep
Yep.
on going. You
Yep.
got this, mama. Come on. You're skilled. You've made it this far in life. You've raised humans. Give yourself some credit. Have some fun. Do something fun for yourself today.
And I would suggest that people contact you whenever they need a pick-me-up.
Yeah.
Whenever they feel like they suck at what they're doing and that they're a terrible mom, you just need to talk to Sasha. You'll be all set. That's worth a connection right there. All right. Well, that is the end of this episode with Sasha. Sasha, thank you so much for being here. That was a really fun episode with you. And to the listeners, I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. And I will see you next week. Thanks for being here.